Hey, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in to today's episodes with my dear friend Sean Snow and his daughter Stephanie. I'm wicked excited to share them with you. And just a heads up, this is a little bit longer interview than I normally do, but there's some real golden nuggets in this sucker. If you're willing to go for the ride and listen to the stories and pay attention, you're going to pick up some cool things. One of the reasons why I really wanted to talk to Sean and, of course, Steph, but specifically Sean, is because I've known him for a wicked long time. He's one of the first people that I met when I moved to New Hampshire from Los Angeles when I came back to the East Coast. And from the very first day that I met him, Sean has been somebody who has inspired me and who has, in his own unique way, helped me to become a better person. Sean is a force to be reckoned with in terms of um, who he is, how he challenges himself, and how he shows up every day, hoping to be an inspiration and an example for what's possible. He has done over 70 half triathlons. So when we're thinking about Ironman triathlons, he's done over 70 of those. He's done 35 like full triathlons, and he has been to the world championships in Kona, Hawaii, Ironman championships 5 times. He has an attitude like no other. He is determined and dedicated to his sport, and also what I would call a daily spiritual practice. You'll learn more about all this when you dive in, but I just wanted to kind of put it into context. Whenever I have a guest on the show, it's because it's somebody who either I love, who inspires me, who I'm curious about or want to get to know more, or I think are doing wicked cool stuff in the world that I want other people to know about. So I hope you enjoy this conversation with my friend S2. That's what I call him. He's Sean Snow, SSS2, and he calls me K2 because I'm Karen Kenney, KK. 2Ks there, right? So I hope you enjoy this conversation between S2, myself, and his daughter Steph, who is following in his footsteps. It's a pretty fun conversation, and there are definitely some moments that really touch my heart. And I hope that they touch your heart too. Enjoy. Hey, you guys. Hey, welcome to the Karen Kenney Show. Hey, you guys, welcome to the Karen Kenney Show. I'm wicked excited about today's episode and today's guest. Oh, and here's our special guest, Kona. Kona just jumps right in there. He's not shy at all. And we'll be talking about him too, because his name actually holds a little significant part of this conversation today. And so you guys, I'll give you the story of how my guests, like my two guests today, Sean Snow, Stephanie Snow. You might hear me refer to Sean as S2. I almost never call him Sean. I call him S2. He, SS, Sean Snow, Karen Kenney, he calls me K2. So you might hear some nicknames being thrown around. I'll probably return, instead of saying Stephanie Snow, I'll probably say Steph or whatever. But these are my friends. I love them. I'll tell you the whole story of how we met, but just so we can kind of get the listeners acclimated, and because this also goes out on YouTube and people might be able to see you right now, just tell me a little bit about yourselves. So like, Steph, I know you're an occupational therapist, like that's a new thing you're diving into. S2, you've worked at Toyota for a really long time, but in your own words, just take a few minutes, just tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll kind of dive into why I wanted to have you on the show today, and then all the questions I have for you.
Want to go? You go.
Me to go first?
Yeah.
All right. So yes, I just transitioned into the role from a student to a OT. I'm working at Concord Hospital now. I actually fortunately work with my mom, so I'm so excited to get to see her all the time.
Yeah.
I on my free time, I'm running, swimming, biking, hiking. I love to be active. That's who I am of my nature. And I have a cat who I really love, and my girlfriend. So we share him, and I just love to chill.
Yeah, you can tell like the audience listens to you guys. What's so funny about having you side by side, they're gonna be like, wow, like father like daughter, because you guys both have this delivery of energy and the way that you talk, and it's like you're like chill, and I'm like, yeah, I totally get that. And Steph, I've watched you growing up since you were like a little kid, so it's like this incredible kind of thing to be in one place as long as I have. Like when I moved from Los Angeles to New Hampshire, way of Massachusetts, LA, New Hampshire, and being in one place for as long as I have and really getting to see like my friends' kids grow up. It's like really cool. All right. So S2, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I'll get to my specific stories and questions and why I wanted to have you on the show.
Yeah, my name is Sean Snow, and I work at Grapponi Toyota. I've been there since 1985. Did a little bit of coaching for about 5 years, coached triathletes and runners. But for the most part, I've been at Toyota for a better part of those years. I like to swim, bike, run, climb mountains.
Come on.
Apple doesn't fall far from the tree, you too.
Yeah, I mean, and enjoy racing, enjoy pushing myself. My big focus, the recent, I'd say past 20 or so years has been triathlon. Prior to that was mountain bike racing. And then, way before that was, team sports, hockey and baseball. So,
yeah. So like, you're like one of what I would consider, it's so interesting though, because I've never actually, well, it's not true. When I first moved from LA, I did live in Concord for like a few months, like on North State Street. People always think that I am from Concord, know all about Concord, but you're what I would call one of Concord's like native sons. Like you're like one of the fucking mayors. Like everybody knows you. I'm like, you can't go anywhere without somebody. Like I think about like all the times you guys were at Bagel Works, there came a time like after my TV show, because I had that TV show, the yoga show with Karen for like 13 years. And I kind of felt like, man, everywhere I go, people would, even if they didn't know how they knew me, they would like look at me, right? And there was a point where I was like, some days I'm just being transparent. I would just like put my earbuds in and be like, but there must be like, you can't go anywhere in Concord without somebody knowing you. True or false?
100% true for him. Grocery stores growing up, it was like you can't walk out without seeing one person.
Oh my.
Yeah, and it's fine. We talk about this. We actually talk about it quite a bit. I could go to the grocery store, or just go downtown, and it's not like I hang out with a lot of friends, but over the course of what I do over the course of like a Saturday, I'll run into 15 friends, and end up talking for so. It doesn't appear that I have these friends that I hang out with for hours and hours, but the reality is each day I go out, I end up, talking with people, and just, I guess that's, and I've, it's just years and years of, I guess living in the same area and seeing the, the changes and sports and just so many great memories of the Concord area. And it's, it's expanded quite a bit, and, working at Toyota, and the customers that I've had there for over the years, with your Forerunner,
Forerunner. We'll talk about the Forerunner. Yeah, but here's the thing. You also worked at Friendly's, didn't you, when you were a kid? Like, so you went to...
Yeah. And that was, I worked there for a few years, and, developed a lot of relationships there, and, customers and friends, and so
there's a lot of community. I mean, like everybody knows you at the Y, everybody know the YMCA, everybody knows you like at, Grapponi, everybody knew you because didn't your mother also work at Friendly's or something like that? So
she was at Friendly's, but before that she was, at French's and Pitchfork.
Pitchfork Records, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, it was, it was she held the same, she was the same as me, if you would, in terms of,
like everybody knew your mother.
just very social,
Yeah.
and yeah.
Yeah. So okay. So thank you. So that you guys, that's how I actually initially met Sean. And I'm going to tell you why I wanted to have him on the show, vicariously through the story of how we met. So, I had a 4Runner that I got in Los Angeles. It was my first ever like new car. I loved this thing. And so when I moved, I'd only had it for like a year or two when I left LA, moved to Concord. And I was like, I need to find, like, I'm kind of like one of those people, I just won't go to some rando like mechanic. I'm like, I'm going to take it to Toyota. I want Toyota service, Toyota wipers, Toyota tire. Like, I just want the Toyota everything. And fun fact, I've only ever owned Toyotas. I'm on my 4th Toyota right now. But my 4Runner was like, oh my God, like my baby. I I loved it. So when I come into the dealership, I find out like where the local Toyota thing, and I walk in. I'll never forget walking in. Now, this was back when you guys had your own little offices. They weren't even cubicles. Like you had your own little space.
Office. Yeah.
And I'll never forget walking in there, 1998, probably around September-ish. And I go in, and you're my guy. You're my customer service representative, or whatever they would call you, my advisor. I think back then you were like advisors or something. And I go in and I look around your office. Now, this is me just coming from California, doing deep spiritual work, all about mind training and, mindset and spirituality and positivity and, changing my story and what I'm capable, like all this stuff, right? Doing all this healing work. And I walk into your space and I look and I just see like medals and pictures and positive quotations. And like, it was like, and I'm not even saying you follow or even know who Tony Robbins is, but that's what it felt like. Like I walk in and it's just like positivity and like all these pictures. And I'm like, literally, I was like, so where we grew up as kids, I always talk about being from Lawrence, Mass. We could say this negatively or positively, but when we would find somebody who we were either, when I say attracted, I don't mean sexually, but that could have been like back when we were kids. But when you get attracted to somebody or repelled by somebody, like you walk into a room and you see them, and we would say, what's their fucking story? Like, what's this person's story, right? What's this all about? So when I walked in, I was like, what's this all about? Like, who is this guy, right? So immediately we just started talking. Now, refresh my memory. We hit it off right away. At least that's my memory. It's like we got along right off the bat, correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you want to say anything about it?
No, I just remember, we just, I think that you asked something about, I don't know, one of the medals or something. And then, you asked what I did, and, I think I told, whatever it was. And you were just like, you do that,
right?
Like,
so,
yeah, crazy,
right.
and then, I don't know, I mean, who knows, but at that point, maybe that, the yoga, you were into yoga, you were right. Wasn't that when
I wasn't a teacher yet, but I was a practitioner of yoga.
Okay.
And I just remember walking in and you saying, oh, this is for a triathlon. And I said, well, tell me about that. And then you explained to me, well, there's like a half, and then there's like a full one. There's an Ironman, because it was an Ironman thing or something. And you start breaking it down for me. And I'm like, wait. And I was like, I know what a marathon is. 26.2 miles. What you're now telling me is that you choose to swim like 2.4 miles. Correct my numbers if I get them wrong. Like 2.4 miles. Then you get on a bike and you bicycle how many hundred? Well,
12.
112. And then you decide to run a marathon after that. And I just remember thinking, like, I do this thing sometimes when I'm doing it right now. Like when my mind, like, I don't even know what to say. I just start laughing because it's so ridiculous to me, and not in a negative way. I'm just like, wait, what? Like, and then I'm like, wait, you voluntarily do this. Like you sign up to do this. Like you enjoy doing this. And you're like, Oh yeah. Like I
And
saw it in your eyes.
this is exactly how the conversation went, and your head is going, you're crazy,
I was
because
like,
you are looking, because I can, at that point, we're just meeting, but, and then, you're looking at me like this guy is really imbalanced, and you're thinking, I'm working on my yoga and my spiritual, my balance. And man, I got a classic example of this guy is like over the top imbalanced. And that's how it all started, like,
yeah, it's
yeah.
so funny. It was so true. And Steph, I definitely want to hear your point of view on this because you also now do these insane things. But wasn't there a point in time, and I'm coming back to that moment, Sean, but wasn't there a point in time? I remember you as an onlooker. I know that there was this one fantastic race when you were little. Was that a world, Sean, when she ran across back then? You could take a family member across the finish line with you. How old were you at that point?
I was 10.
Okay, so when you're watching your dad growing up, and you're an only child, right? So
Yeah.
you're watching your dad do all this stuff. And I know your mom, she's active, she hikes, she goes through, I have no idea where your mom is at right now, but I've seen her go through phases where like she ran a half and she would like train and she moved her body a lot too. But wasn't there a point I remember you saying, and if I'm making this up, forgive me, where you were like, I don't know about all of this training, running, competing. Was it one point where you were like on the other side of the fence? And if so, then what happened where now you find yourself doing the same insane shit that your father does?
I think like you're 100% right. Cause I was not, I was inspired by him, but I also was young. So it wasn't like, I don't think I fully grasped it. I was like, I remember watching in Hawaii and we were like, our hotel was like more than a mile down the road. And they swam, we saw the buoys at that time, like along the coast, and you could see the buoy. And I'm like, they swim all the way this way? I don't want to ever do this.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what clicked it. I think over time being in sports, and then knowing what's beyond sports after they end. I knew I could do different leagues and stuff, but I think once I kind of in between when I started cross country, that really kind of helped with running, but
Yeah.
I was doing triathlons before that too. So I think there was just an in-between stage where I was like learning, like, okay, if I keep doing better, like my results are getting better. Oh, that's cool. And then it just kind of, it was just like, I don't know, domino effect as it all rolled down, but I don't know. I'm at the point where I'm doing them now, I guess.
Yeah. And I mean, I want to kind of talk about the psychology of that because you're exactly right as to like, you're describing all this stuff, right? And I'm listening and I'm thinking, okay, wait a minute. Like you're saying, like I'm perceiving as I'm like, this is like a little imbalance because let's break it down to the reality. To be able to do that and do it well, because neither of you not that you don't have fun when you're out there, but you two, again, you can always correct me, but you seem a little competitive. Like you two are competitive athletes, right? So when you race, you're not just like, oh, I'm doing like you're racing to do well. You're racing to win, right? I mean, correct. Nod your heads, right? Yes, no, yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're going out there in this very driven way to like do this thing. And in order to show up prepared, the level, and this goes to the thing where I was just like in the beginning, like, wow, this is like, how is this possible? Like, what does your day-to-day life look like? Because it's almost like having a second full-time job. That's how it always seemed to me. Like, I was like, okay, so you're doing your 40 hours at your job, right? At the time when I first met you, Toyota.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, then there was that 5-year window when you were doing S2 coaching and you were training all the like area like triathletes. I think actually you spurned a little movement because I saw like a few people start to pop up after you, but in my memory, like and I could be wrong and you can correct me. I kind of remember you being like the original one to do that. But just talk about that though, like the hours that it takes to prepare yourself physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, I would say, to do that with your body, with your time, with your energy. I mean, how many hours at that point a week were you training?
I mean, I would say at that time, I mean, anywhere from 15 to, depending on, what I had for, time off, etc. I mean, 15 to, we'll call it almost 30 hours.
Yeah.
I
So
mean, some of the, the big bike weekends or big bike weeks. I mean, back then I had a rotating schedule, so I worked long days. So I'd, every third week I'd get 5 days off. So, those 5 days were pretty much, big training block days. And yeah, no, it was definitely like having a second job, but I think back then, and I think that Steph can probably, I guess now that she's working full time, and you can ask her about this, after I'm done. But I feel for me, having that, the reason I keep going back to doing it is, and going back to the big long races, because quite honestly, I mean, I wouldn't say it'd be easy for me, but I could say, to myself, okay, let's just kick it down a notch and, do the shorter races for a while and just kind of regroup a little bit. Cause I mean, obviously I'm not getting any younger, but I feel like it gives me the structure, for my day, and not only, and I think back then, as well, that it gave me structure, not only athletically, physically, mentally, spiritually, but for my work, for my job. I felt like I perform better at work. I perform better overall in life, and I mean, it sounds like it sounds crazy, but I felt like having those big goals, and because of the fact that I had the big goals, forced me, if you would, to do it, and to and to put the time in, and be competitive. And there's I even early on, I think I fought the perception of, I wouldn't, I guess others, thinking that it is an imbalance, in that, and an obsession, to be blunt, an obsession, you're obsessed with doing it.
Yes.
And reality, and I countless times, in conversations I've had, with people before, that have said, you're obsessed. But the reality is that it's not that I'm obsessed with doing it, because quite honestly, there's been times that I could very easily have said, I'm good with this, I really am. But I'm obsessed with being my best. And I feel like that was my way of being my best. And early on, when I decided to get into the whole fitness thing, when Pam was pregnant with Steph, that's when I decided, okay, I need to get, physically fit again after some years of taking off from team sports.
Yeah.
And that just kind of, it metamorphosed into what it became with triathlons, and, I discovered the Ironman stuff. And it just was it was, and it continues to be, how I'm able to structure my life, my day, my weeks, years,
I want to talk about that. So, because you and Pam been married for over like 35, how many years now?
32, well, this will be 33. This will
Not
be
to put
30.
you on the spot, but yeah.
89, so 33. This will be 33 years.
Yeah. So for a wicked long time. And Steph, I want to hear from you about this too in a second, but I want to put it into context for people who are listening right now. So I'm sure pretty much everybody who's listening understands what like a triathlon is, right? You start the race with, as we said, with a swim, with a bike, and then with a run. And there's varying degrees. Like there's a half marathon. I mean, there's a half triathlon, which is like what, 70.6? What is
70.3. Yeah.
70.3.
Yeah.
And then you have the 140.6, right? And what that, I mean, but an average person, this is why when I want to put into thing like, when people use those words like, oh, imbalance or obsessed or whatever, the reality of it is, let's just take somebody who isn't a professional triathlete, but somebody like who is in the sport. How long does it take an average person to finish a race like that? How many hours? Like, just let's put it into context. A full triathlon, right? A world Ironman or a world, like how long?
I'd say the average would probably be, I'd say 14 and a half. 14 and a half.
14 and a half what? What's that word?
Hours.
Okay. Okay. This is what I'm saying. So your body is pretty much in motion for like 14 and a half hours. And this isn't a walking, although sometimes it is, right? If you pull a hammy or something happens, we're talking 14 and a half hours of nonstop physical swimming. And it's not like you can just take a break when you're swimming. I mean, they got the guys out in the boats to save your ass if you need to. But this is what I'm saying, right? For a lot of people, that is incomprehensible. Like, it takes a certain kind of person to wake up in the morning and go, yeah, I think that's a good idea. Like, I think that's what I want to do. I think that's how I want to spend my time. Right. And it's no judgment. Of course. I mean, we became friends because I was fascinated by it. Like, it wasn't a judgment, me going, this is me. My brain was like, how does this work? Like, how does this happen? I've always been fascinated by people who can do things that I can't do. And it's not that I can't do it, but I'm not called. Like, that wasn't my calling, right? I had been an athlete my whole life. I still run, I still work out, I'm still active, but became a yoga teacher. I used my body my whole life. But not once have I thought, I want to go do like a triathlon. Like, that sounds like a good idea. So I'm fascinated that you got whatever the impulse or inspiration, both of you, or the gene. And for you, Steph, like I said, like if you had other siblings or you were pursuing something else, like maybe, like, let's say you had stuck with hockey, right? Or whatever, like one of your other sports. So maybe just vicariously through seeing your dad and literally growing up with it and being the one kid who was like at the races and hearing the cheering and seeing your dad get better and the way that that inspired you. Like, I just think it's fascinating. So maybe you can be born with the gene, maybe you can get inspired to do it, but we can admit it's not a normal thing to be like, oh, I want to spend my life training all this time. I do think it takes a particularly like, I don't know, exceptional way of being. And why it's important and how I want to kind of bring it back to the spiritual in the work that I do is that one of the things I've always told my yoga students, my clients, people in my membership, the Nest, is this idea of having a daily spiritual practice. We call it a DSP. And it's like, I call it like starting and ending your day with God or source or the divine or whatever people call it, right? And doing these things, as you said, to be our best self. You do that in a couple of different ways. But I thought what was really powerful is you were saying, I was using these races, this sport, this energy, this time. And again, Steph, I want to hear your perspective on this, like what drives you. But you says it helps you to be the best version of yourself. It helps you to kind of know where you are in your week or your day or what I'm supposed to be doing. It keeps your mind right. It keeps your focus. It does all these things for you. And I know, and again, I always say to people, if it's too personal, you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to. But there was a period of time, like when you left Toyota, you started coaching others, which I can just say as a mentor, some people might call me a coach as well in the spiritual realm, that when you start putting all your energy or pouring all your expertise and energy and time into other people, it can really it can take from you in a little ways. And you kind of, for lack of a better word, I'll just say, maybe lost your focus a little bit, right?
Right.
And then, and so I want to hear a little bit about this. And then you kind of made a recommitment on multiple levels, spiritually. You started creating a morning ritual. So can we kind of, I know I threw a lot at you, because we kind of talk about that, like how that morning routine, that morning ritual, and how you kind of found your way back. And because the one thing I say about you is you do keep getting better and better, but so does Steph. She's right on your tail, and we'll talk about that too.
No, she passed my tail
Yeah,
now, but that's
yeah. So
yeah.
you keep getting, and I said to you the last few years, I'm like, how the fuck are you getting faster? I'm like, dude, you're getting older, but you're getting better and stronger and faster. Like Steve Austin, astronaut, man barely alive. We can rebuild him. Bigger, stronger, faster. Remember that $6 million man? So can you talk a little bit about what I'm saying?
Yeah. So,
Bless you.
yes, I'm going to step back in time just for a second and just say, we talk about, how it's the structure and what got me there. And, and as I've gotten old, as I've become older, I've realized, I've always had this, even as a kid, I've always had this, I guess, obsession with, with being, picking a sport and being the best that I could. And I was now, I was I was not a big kid. And, playing baseball and hockey, competitively right through, right through American Legion. I was not, gifted, if you would, with like size. And so I had to work that extra, in playing hockey right through high school, 125 pounds, just getting beat up by, 190-pound guys. I had to learn, I had to be obsessed with being the best that I could with that. Playing baseball, I pitched, and I didn't throw the ball, 80 miles an hour. It wasn't fast, but, I would be the kid in my, in the yard, repetitiously pitching the ball against my barn for hours and hours and hours every day after school. Same with hockey, shots after shot after shot after shot after shot, and I feel like, and so that's always been something that I guess I would say I've been gifted with, because I have no problem with going out and shooting. I guess Michael Jordan, has his thing when, he says you got to shoot, 1,000, or Kobe, 1,000 shots a day. I got no problem doing that. You tell me I got to do it, I'm going to do it.
So wait, let me interrupt there a little bit, and hopefully, and Steph, if we lose our way, bring us back on track. But so this thing, the brain learns the way that the brain learns. We always say repetition is the mother of all learning.
Yeah.
But where most people struggle is they get bored.
Yes.
They'll do it like 10 times, 15 times, 20 minutes, whatever the rep is, right? And then they're like, they don't have the capacity to stay with a thing.
Right.
Their mind travels. So it's interesting that you also just brought up Michael Jordan, because I want to, I'm going to come back. I'm not going to lose my way, but you do these daily posts, which we'll also talk about. And this is really interesting because it says right here, because you were just talking about being a small kid, right? So just answer quickly. Were you bullied? Were you ever picked on because of your size? Or did they respect you because you were a hard worker and you were a good athlete? Did you have to earn that? I mean, but was there any kind of like, because I want to get behind or underneath that drive Like, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe you were born with it. Maybe there's something else there, but were you ever picked on or anything like that?
I wouldn't say, well, I mean, as a kid, I mean, real small, yeah. I mean, at the bus stops or whatever, so yes. So, and I will tell you that as a kid, growing up in a trailer park and being that the little
See,
kid that
this
was
is where,
bullied, okay? Now that I use that as fuel.
see,
As
okay, we're gonna,
even as a kid,
yes,
I would use that as fuel. So they, at that time, and I knew, I knew even as a kid that, all right, this is the way it's going right now, but this is, and it went right here, so, and so
to your
not really
heart, like
a
you could,
lot as, so that kind of metamorphosed into, playing sports. And playing sports, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I got picked on, but it would be, it wouldn't be, unusual to have somebody laugh at it's how slow I would pitch, or
yes.
how small I was. But at the end, I was well prepared going into it, and people were, I wouldn't say, I wouldn't say people were shocked, or they'd be, I mean, playing high school hockey, 125 pounds, I would, I was probably the smallest kid on the ice, I used to get knocked around, but then I'd have to learn how to, how to maneuver and get through it, and so yeah, I mean, it definitely was, I wouldn't say, I was picked on, all the time and bullied or anything like that, but I would say, yeah, I mean, it definitely, being a smaller person, skinnier
Sure.
person, not having the weight and all that, it definitely was a motivator on on wanting to get better. I knew that I would have to get better. If I was going to go out and do what I wanted to do, I knew that I would, and I had no problem. Spending hours, and coaches, used to, my mom used to, have to pull me inside, or coaches would, would tell, would try to put a lid on the amount of time that I would spend training, just to get prepared, because at that time, I would be scheduled to pitch, and here I was 2 days before,
Throwing,
trying to pinpoint, to pinpoint it, so, and I think that that's many, many years ago, but I feel like, in understanding my, my psychology now, even, I feel like that has set that forward. And I got no problem now, like people, Steph and I talk about this quite often, I mean, we've become, how would I say it? We've become such a distracted society, if you would, right?
Yes.
And so we have to have something that's always keeping us stimulated, and you see, what, the evolution of the phone and the earphones, and it's made it really easy to train or to race with music or whatever it is that motivates you. But if you're able to do it, right here, not have to have that external source.
I want to interrupt you really quick, because for the people who are listening and not watching, what he just did is he tapped his heart. He tapped his chest, and he said, when you can do it from in here, and he means internally, like self-driven, self-motivated. Hi, Kona. So there's so many things. I literally feel like I'm like, oh my God, I could talk to you guys for 3 hours, because there's so many things I want to talk about. But one of the things I'm going to say, and then Steph, I'm coming right to you. You do these daily posts, which we'll get to. But why I want to bring up this one, this is the one from today, and it's a quote from Mahatma Gandhi, who's one of my head honchos on my spiritual team. And it says, strength does not come from physical capacity. It comes from an indomitable will. And that's kind of what both of you have. And I want to get to that, because I think, and one of the questions that I always ask, and we might dive into a little bit more, is, and it's right here on the sheet, I can tell you right here, it says, what were you like as a kid? because that's what I'm most curious about. It's really easy to look at you two, and like I said, we're going to talk about your races, and I know you're humble, but I'm going to make you brag a little bit, or at least tell us some stuff. But you know, most people are interested in like, oh, tell me about this guy. He's been to Kona World Championships how many times, and he's done how many races, and he's the best in his age group, and he's this and this and this. And I'm always curious about, well, how did we get there though? What was that character act? What was that story to the glory? Like, I want to know, like, who were you? What were the odds against you? Like, where did you come from? Like, how did you become this kind of person? So, Steph, would you say that, and again, you know, it's so interesting. If I was talking to you without him here, and I didn't know you, let's say I was just interviewing you, like, you might be able to say to me like, oh, where am I going with this? Like, because it's hard to separate, because I know the two of you, and I know the kind of example that was set for you. But do you think you also had that thing within you to be repetitive, to be disciplined, to be committed, to do a thing again and again and again and again? Do you think that, like, what if your dad wasn't doing that stuff? And I know it's kind of impossible in some ways to answer, because he was doing those things, but tell me about you and your inner world. Like, are you the same way? Do you get bored, or how do you push through, or you know, do the training?
It's hard to say what it would be like if he wasn't doing it,
Sure.
because whenever I'm thinking, whenever I'm having a low in training, or during a workout, I think about how he perseveres through it, and how he's gone through his races. But also, I've learned it now. I'm starting to, as I dig deeper now, I'm starting to learn myself more. And even today, when I was swimming a longer swim today,
Yeah.
and it's just back and forth in the pool, laps and laps. And I was thinking, I'm like, this is boring, but I'm like counting it to myself, and I just find a rhythm, and I think about what lap I'm at, or like, it might be boring to some people, but to me, it's just each lap is going to get me better to where I want to be, and my goals are, my goals and beyond. So I think it's just staying in the moment. And to wrap it back to your question, it's like, I think through sports, I've never been I've like been talented, but I don't think I've ever been like the top one on the team. Most of my teams, I've always had people that were better than me. So I've always looked up to them. I've always looked up to professional athletes. And so that's always been on the back of my head, of just trying to look at those top models, and just setting the eye to it and going.
So those examples that have been set by the athletes who have come before you.
Yep.
So there's several things I want to say to you too. And so this might get awkward for a second, so we might want to just pretend like your dad's not there. But so I have this picture of you, like your graduation picture, that I lifted off the internet.
Oh,
but your quote at your graduation, it looks like, is obstacles. This is Michael Jordan quote, and you brought up Michael Jordan. That's what I said. Obstacles don't have to stop you. If you run into a wall, don't turn around and give up. Figure out how to climb it, go through it, or work around it. And it's very similar to like what your dad posted, which is about this kind of having this indomitable will. But here's a question that I have, and I don't know if you, like, even subconsciously, I mean, I think of you as an honest person, but what I'm about to say is, I don't know if you can answer this honestly, but sometimes I wonder, like, you know, when there's like a business, right? And it's like Sanford and Sons, or you know, so and so and company, but it's like it's a family business that's been passed down and passed down and passed down and passed down. And like you said, it's like, let's say that the owner of the business, the grandfather, you know, dies, and the dad and the kids are like left in charge. And they might ask the question, well, what would grandpa do? Or what would dad say we should do here, right? They're going to look to that wisdom or whatever. Have you ever felt like, I know this is a personal question, but I'm curious about the dynamics of people and families who do the same thing. Have you ever felt like, if I don't do this race, or I know I gave my word or whatever, my dad might be disappointed? Has that ever been a thing where you felt, not that he pressures you, but
Mhm.
are you self-driven based on, I don't want to disappoint myself? Or is there ever that thing about, well, I know my dad would do it this way? Am I clear in my question?
Yeah. I don't think he's made it clear to me that he's never going to push me. Like, it's more, this is what these are my recommendations, but you don't, he's always made it clear, I'm not pushing you. And whenever I've had a bad game, bad race, whatever, I've never felt like he was disappointed in me, because in every game I've done, I've given effort, and that's
Mm.
to his eyes what he wants to see. So that's how I've felt my life through sports and through like school and all that too.
Yeah, but he just wants
It
you
was
to try
one
your
time
best.
though.
One
Go
time.
go ahead. Tell
One
me,
time.
tell me the
There
story.
was no, there was
Oh,
one
which was a game changer, actually.
one time.
This is
Yeah.
important. All right, tell us the
Yeah,
story.
no, there was,
Yeah.
and really, I mean, and I'll go back to what, what Steph said, like, first of all, I didn't want her to do her first Ironman at her age, and she decided to do it.
How old
Anyway,
was she? Give us some context.
she was not, you were 19 when you did it?
I was 19 when I decided to do it, but then I was 20 when I
20,
did it.
yeah, so.
And how old are you now, to put it in context?
26.
Okay.
Yeah, but she wanted to do it, and I told her, I said, you're 18, but I would, because she was in the heart of college, and and I knew the time was going to be an issue with training, and because she was dedicated to her studies, and she was also playing team sports, etc. So, but I've never stopped her from doing whatever she wants to do. I mean, and we've talked about it where I'm like, what, if you don't like doing it, certainly don't do it, and there's been times that I wanted to say something, but I, like after a game, and about all of her team sports and etc. But I always, a game is a game, and I knew that she
Let me
always
ask you, let me be rude. I know I'm being rude and interrupting. When you say, I wanted to say something about what? Was it her
performance,
performance?
a performance,
Ever
but I also,
attitude? Steph ever have a little attitude, or was she always a great? I mean, my experience of Steph
attitude,
over all these years, always a great kid.
absolutely.
No.
Attitude.
Oh,
There's a-
attitude, a
Yeah.
little
Oh,
attitude.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
We train it together
Oh
now.
yeah,
So
no, now, but no, attitude for sure. Yeah, not a bad way, but but I knew when to stand back, and I mean, she's very competitive, and whether it was going to practice, same idea. It was, if she went to practice, you got in, once you got towards practice, I'm driving her to practice. It was just like all of a sudden,
this was the story.
shit hits the fan. I mean, it was, you just,
I want to say the story.
the story about this. So the story, well, the one that really sticks out is she had a couple of games, I think, and it was, I don't remember, I think it was when you were playing with the girls team, and oh man, she was not, Steph would always ask me about, how I did, how did I look out there, Dad, and 99.99999% of the time I would always be, like, it would always be an optimistic, positive, you look good, and then maybe because she really wanted my opinion, she wanted feedback, which she continues now,
Mhm.
and and then if there was something going on, then I would say, okay, well, maybe work on this, or whatever. But she'd asked me, I think this is the same one that you're thinking of, but she'd asked me, she had two girls games at St. A's, and
What sport was it?
hockey.
Okay.
hockey. And after the game, game one, it was like a 2-hour, in between. And she asked me, and I was up in the stands, and I was just like, man, her head and her heart were just not in this game at all. I mean, to the point of just like, it was just
obvious.
Yeah, it was just obvious, and whatever. I mean, it was what it was. But I think it was I don't remember if it was an important game or what it was, but it was getting late in the season, whatever. And so after the game, Steph, and I was just like, okay, this ain't happening. If she asks me, it's shit's hitting the fan, and she gets in the van after, and we're going to get some lunch before the next game. And there's silence in the car, and she's like, so how'd I do, Dad?
There it is.
Oh my God, I'm preparing right now.
Yeah. No,
All right.
I'm silent. I was just like silent. And I don't remember the exact words that came out, but I said, you sucked.
Yeah.
You sucked. And Steph was just like, what? I said, no. I said, you sucked. And it wasn't that she sucked. And that was the point that I wanted to make. And this is how the conversation went. It wasn't that the effort wasn't there. I mean, the effort wasn't there. That was the point that I was making. I'm like, Steph, I said, it wasn't like you were making bad plays or anything. You just did not play. There was no heart at all.
Yeah.
There was nothing to, if you're looking for, and I'm giving you my positive feedback, but you just sucked. There was no desire to be doing what you were doing, and it showed dramatically. And then, what the conversation wasn't long, but it was really the only time I would have to say, I don't really even recall another time that we ever had the conversation like that. But, and so we went and we got, of course she cried, and, and that, I kept explaining to her, it wasn't that you just weren't putting the effort in, and if you're looking to get better, you have to put the effort in. You're going to have good games, your bad games, but I mean, you were just completely
so it wasn't, you weren't necessarily, disappointed in her as a person. Like, it wasn't that like, oh, you suck as a human being. It was that you were missing heart, effort. Like, it seemed as if I'm interpreting right here. But that you gave a shit to be out there. Like, why are you out there? If you're going to show up like this, like, why are you out there? Is that basically?
Yes. Yeah. And that was it. And I mean, and I can feel that now. Yeah. Like, I can feel it. Like, I'm like, there was no wanting to, the effort it wasn't even like she was trying to, it was just like, there was no effort.
Lights on, nobody's home.
It was just like, this ain't happening. What's going on, And
where's my daughter? Like, this isn't my kid. Like,
what's happening? This isn't right. I mean, this is not her, and then, and it probably would never have come up unless she had asked me, like,
you weren't going to inflict it.
I wasn't going to, but I can tell you that I was, tempted. It was definitely, I was in there in the stands going, man, because I knew we had another game coming up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, and so that's where it came in. And long story short, she fueled up, and next game, it was just like a totally different, and the parents were just like, what the hell did you do?
What did you do? What did you give this kid at lunch? Well, wait, Steph, tell me though, you said, so A, what's it like to be on the receiving end of that feedback? And B, like, how do I say this? So, like, did you know going into it that your performance or whatever had been lackadaisical? What was it like to hear that? And you said that day was a game changer. Like, that conversation was a game changer. Tell me what that was like from your perspective.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, so the first thing is, that's actually not the story I was thinking.
Oh.
So the red team?
Yeah, so I was thinking there was one time during a practice, similar type of thing where we had a very deep conversation. He actually pulled over to the side of the road.
So let me back up.
We're gonna go.
Well, so Steph had made a team that was superstars. all right, I mean, superstar hockey. I mean, we're
Mhm.
talking
Her age and
yes. I mean, just these girls were like the best of the best, and I would say in New Hampshire,
Okay.
and Steph made it. But Steph was, she was like me with she really had to fight to make it.
Sure.
And for her to be around, and this was in the beginning of the season, to be around these girls that were, we're talking prep school, we're talking a couple of them now are playing in the pro and, for the pro women leagues
Yeah.
now. And she was very intimidated by it, and it was an honor to be on a team. But by the same token, Steph, was like, she just wasn't herself, and she was really afraid to go to the practices, and we were driving up to Tilton one day, and I think we were going to practice, and we were, I could tell that it was not, so I wouldn't say that this is like the same type of conversation, but this was a game changer,
So I want to hear about both of them from your point of view, Steph. Like, what was it like? And then in S2, if you have more to say about that story from a dad's point of view, I want to hear it. But tell me, like, so that first one, let's complete that. So when he says to you, you sucked, like, what was that? That wasn't the one you were thinking of, though, right?
No.
Okay. All right.
But-
so tell me. All right. So we can go back to that one. Let's stay on track with the one that Sean just told, so we keep everybody on the same page. So, you get this gig, basically, you make it on this team with girls who are maybe bigger, better, stronger, faster, been at it longer, more focused concentration, like whatever the thing is. And you're feeling a little self-doubt or insecurity or whatever.
a lot.
Yeah.
Do you like a lot, meaning, do you talk about it a lot? Are you voicing this to your dad, or does this just happen over one conversation? Like, what happened?
I think over time it gradually, like, the nerves got more and more as the season was approaching and going. And then I think this was just a buildup of it, though. I was still holding a lot in from it. And then before this practice, it just kind of like, I was like, my nerves overcame me, and I was like, I don't know if I specifically said I don't want to go, but I was like not really wanting to go at all.
To practice?
To practice.
Yeah.
So you're in a locked container space, like you're in a car with this guy.
Yep.
And you make I'm joking, the mistake, right? Or you say the comment, or you let out this moment of I don't want to do this. I don't know if I can do it, like whatever the words are. And then what happens?
He basically lets out a can of whoop ass on me.
I pulled over.
He pulled over, and that's when I'm like, shit, like, it's getting real right now. I mean, I was probably 12, it was U12, so I was 12-ish.
Oh my God, I thought you were like 19. Okay, so you're 12 years old.
No. 12 or 14? No, it was 14.
Oh, it was 14.
No, 14. Yeah, it was U14s.
Oh, it was U14.
Yeah, it was U14s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I still felt I know I was young.
Yeah.
But I was, enough where I knew where he was getting to.
Do you remember what he said to you specifically? Is there anything that stayed with you all this time?
Not specific quote, but it basically, I remember getting the vibe of like, you have two decisions to make. There's two pathways right now.
Yeah.
You're going to go down two roads. You have a choice between those two. Either you're choosing to commit to this team, or you're not. And we're pulling around, we're pulling over, and you're not, we're going to go back home, and you're not doing this. And it basically, I mean, that's the first time he's ever that.
As a storyteller, let me put this in context, right? So you guys is the car idling, or is the car shut off? Like, how serious are we?
We're on the side of the road. We're basically in the middle of Tilton.
Okay. So
you probably turned it off.
Probably turned it off. But we
pull over. We shut off the car.
Yep.
we know it's about to get serious. And you basically look at her and you say like, look, basically this is the shit or get off the pot speech, right?
Yep.
Either we're going to this practice and you're going to give it your all and you're going to commit to this team and you're doing this, or we're turning around right now and we're not doing this. Is that basically the gist of it?
Yep.
It was, but I will say this, that I also in that it wasn't like you are doing this. It big part of that conversation was you deserve to be on this team. You deserve to be out there. You need to convince yourself that you deserve to be out there and that you are good enough to be with these girls. That was the problem, was or the weakness in her head was she just didn't believe that. And I'm like, and it wasn't that it wasn't at that time, because it was not you are going to play or you're not going to play. We're not going to keep doing this. It was, you need to decide right now,
who you
right
are.
now, whether you are good enough to play with them or not good enough. Because if you don't believe that you're good enough to play with them and you don't want to put the effort into that, then we're going to turn around. If we're going to decide right now that we're not going to have any more of this, and that you are going to decide to be the best that you can be, and you belong to be with these girls because you do, because you made this team, then we're going. We're going to go, we're going to this thing, and it starts today. And, and it wasn't, it wasn't like, I don't think it was a really, how would I say, really like, conversation, but it was more of a, you deserve to do it. But if you don't believe, if you don't believe it right now, you got to believe it right now. If you don't, and if this is going to be an issue, we're going to call up, the coach, and we're going to let him know that we're stepping away. We'll turn the van around and we're leaving. And
what I love about this is something that I often say to my clients and the people in the nest is, I can't want your happiness, your peace, I can't want this for you more than you want it for yourself. That's not going to work. Like, you have to want this or believe in yourself or whatever, because the one thing that I know to be true is that external validation, external accolades, external support, external everything, trust me, it's great. But when it's you and you're looking yourself in the mirror, or you're towing the line, or you have a decision to make, or you're being called, and I think we get called in this lifetime to do things that sometimes we might feel like we are not up for the task. And it's great when other people believe in you. But this is why this conversation, what you said, this one right now, and the one that you had back then, is so important, is that you were calling her forth to believe in herself.
Right.
It was, because you could have just sat there and said, Steph, you've got the skill, I believe it. This was you saying, you have to decide right now who you are and what you're made of and who you're going to be.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's always stayed with you, Steph?
Yeah, I think that was a huge game changer for me in that end. And I know, and even beyond, like in that season, actually, I was thinking about it as he was saying it. It's actually really, it didn't change my talent or anything. I wasn't like a rock star the whole season. But the cool thing about it was, actually during our state championship game, I scored the winning goals for us to go to regionals.
In overtime, a breakaway. And that was I was going to say, that is the epitome of, the moral to the story is, and people that are listening, that I believe is that once you decide that, you have that capability, and whatever it is that you do, and you put the effort into it, and even though it's not, right throughout the whole season, Steph had a really good season, but she didn't stand out, like a lot of the hockey players that she played with, because they really were that good,
Mm-hmm.
But in the end result, Steph scored the goal to win the state championship. Mm-hmm. So, it's, it takes the commitment, it takes the desire to want to believe in yourself,
Yeah.
And with that, it's, you're still going to have you're always going to have the rocky roads and all that. But, I mean, often it turns out that, the universe comes back to us,
100%. I often say to my clients, I say, look, the universe can't get behind wishy-washy. The universe can't get behind wishy-washy. And there's a famous old quote about, I think it was W.H. Marcotte, maybe. No, Murray, W.H. Murray, who was one of the first guys to like climb Mount Everest or Kilimanjaro, one of the big ones, whatever. And he has this quote, and part of the quote is, once you commit, Providence will move too. And it will bring you all kinds of things that you need, resources, support, like whatever it is. But when you're on the fence and you're doing that, tap dance of like, oh, I don't know, and da 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 da. And here's the thing though, even if you end up blowing it or sucking or it doesn't go the way you plan, you played with heart, right? Clear eyes, full heart, can't lose, right? There's a reason why that saying sticks,
Yeah.
And so I'm loving this so much. And I want to talk about this because we've talked about commitment quite a bit. And like I said, I have 1,000 questions for you, but one of the ways that I think, yes, there are these things that motivated you as a child, that drive that you had, and we'll maybe have time to come back around to that. But as an adult, you now get to choose every day. This is who I want to be. This is how I want to be. These are the choices that I'm making. This is what I'm doing. So you set yourself up each day to do this. Now, I remember back when you left Toyota for that five-year period of time, and you started S2 coaching. And because of our friendship, I started doing yoga for athletes, specifically for you and like your athletes. And I started to spend a lot of time with you guys. And I started to, like, I felt insane too, because I'm like, why am I getting up at 2 a.m. to go to a race? Because I would go as like a cheerleader, right? Like I love supporting you guys. And in fact, for my 40th birthday, my sweetie bought me a ticket because I went to watch you race in Kona at one of the Ironman World Championships. Was that 2008, 2009? What year was that?
2008.
It was 8, right?
2008. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have a story I want to ask you about that race as well. But like I was committed. I wasn't racing, but I had the gear. Like I had the S2 coaching gear, and I was officially on the sideline. Steph, I saw you at a bunch of races, But I'd be like driving my Forerunner to like these events, like sleeping in the back of my car to like, you hear the horns going off, and then all the bathroom anxiety and people zipping up and everybody doing the shenanigans. But I loved watching you guys like do what you do. But something shifted for you. Like you had all this discipline when it came to like getting out there. Like I've seen pictures of you with like snow, like icicles for eyelashes and like running in extreme weather and all this insane stuff. But something in the past, I don't know, however many years, and I'm not going to say it's new, but what I feel like was a recommitment to yourself, your spirituality, your inner world. Can we talk a little bit about that and like your what I would call a daily DSP, daily spiritual practice, like what that looks like for you now and how you came back to that or how you created it and why it's so important?
Yeah. I mean, so I've always had the commitment. I've always had the drive and the and the goals and the routines, etc. And for you go through the ebbs and flows of it all. And I think as I approached 50, after I got out of the coaching. I think I always enjoyed the coaching. It was a great 5 years, and I was very blessed to be able to do what I did.
Mm-hmm.
I think that in some ways it just I wouldn't say took the energy took the energy out of me, but I think in some ways it I guess it did.
Yeah.
Putting, putting the energy into it the way I did, I guess. And, and so I would say that I wouldn't say that it was a low point for me, but I guess it was a low point, and it was a point in my life that, I grew up probably, partying and, drinking and doing all that stuff. And, that stuff continued, right through my 40s. You go to concerts, you drink, or you'd watch, sports and get together with friends, and, would have beers, and, that's kind of the way that we grew up. And
Yeah.
I'd say, in my 40s, I hit a low point, with that. And, into my late 40s, I still did the triathlons, and I still, I guess performed at a how would I, at the best at the best results that I could get, and still did pretty well. But I wasn't, it wasn't here, it was not in my heart the way that it should have been. And I knew that for myself that there would have to be changes. I knew that, I wouldn't be able to keep getting away with what I was doing, and then getting older. It just wasn't a good mix,
I remember that. I mean,
and I thought, I see it, I've seen it, I see it with, as I got older, and recognized it with other friends, if you would, and people that I knew. I knew that, the stuff that you can get away with when you're younger, it starts to catch up with you.
So you kind of have so I jokingly call these, like, you have a come to Jesus moment, right? Like, you have this
Yeah.
moment where you recognize, okay, this shit's not going to keep working.
Not gonna
Something
work.
has to change.
Yep.
There's, like, whether it's an epiphany or a moment or a recognition, like, and for some people, like Steph was saying earlier, it's not like always like this definitive moment, but sometimes it is. It's like you have this realization, you kind of wake up out of your stupor, and you look around, and you're like, what am I doing?
Yep.
Something has to change, right?
Yeah. And that's where, I had a couple of those epiphany moments, if you would, but the one that really, that really kicked it off was Steph, Pam, and myself were at visiting Stephanie at the University of New England. We were, walking on a beach. And,
the three stones, this is three stones,
yeah,
right? Yeah, go ahead.
So, and walking on the beach, and, for whatever reason, I don't know if, we'd been partying the night before or whatever it was, but I knew that, you know what, I just need to get my shit together. And we were on the beach, and, I looked down, and there were 3 rocks in the sand. And right then I decided, I picked up the 3 rocks and said, this is it. These rocks are coming home. And with me, they're going to go on my bathroom sink. And today it all begins. Today I, quit the drinking, get my shit together. And, for at that time, it wasn't like I was, okay, I'm going to get up every morning at 3:30, but I knew that my nights were going to, I got to start getting to bed early, and I need to start getting up earlier, and
Yeah.
And then
Let me ask you, I want to interrupt. Again, as a storyteller, the details for me are so important. So what did these 3 rocks symbolize to you? Like, you
they
see these,
symbolize me, Steph, and Pam.
and what about these rocks, like, that makes you say, like, I'm picking these up. These represent, these 2 people in my life who I love the most. This is our family unit. And
Yeah.
when you saw them, you just felt like, was it more than just like, I need to get my shit together for me? Was it more like, I need to get my shit together for them and for us?
All of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was for us. Yes.
Yeah.
That was the main, and that continues to be, the main is it's for us.
Yeah.
But I also knew, and so the us led to me, which
Yes.
led to, my changes. Yes. And that's what I still, when I look at those three rocks, I don't look at those three rocks as me as an individual. Those
Right.
three rocks are us as a family.
Yeah, they symbolize something greater than you, because
Yes.
that's because at some point there are just times, especially, and I want to talk about this in a moment, when you're out there on that course and you're like 10 hours in, 9 hours in, you need something greater than yourself sometimes to lean upon, right?
Yes.
And I think that's part of where, like, you came back to, and I don't want to speak for you. I don't want to use words, religion, spirituality, God. Those are you can decide how you want to talk about that. But I know that part of this morning ritual, and it makes me laugh. And we've talked about this so many times, where I'm still a night owl, but I don't go to bed as late as I used to. But it used to be that, like, I'd be going to bed and I'd be thinking to myself, oh, Sean's getting up right now. And I used to, like, laugh. I used to just be like, what is happening? And it's the same thing with my friend Walter, who I did a podcast on. Walter has been getting up at 3:20. He's one of the top strength and conditioning coaches in the country. He's trained all these Olympic athletes. He has like 14 Olympic athletes, all this stuff. And Steph, his wife, actually, Walter's wife, is the head coach now. She was assistant coach at BU women's hockey. She's now the head coach at Dartmouth women's hockey. I still
Wow.
want you to, I still feel like I want you two to meet. I don't know. I know you're not playing hockey anymore, but I still want to meet. But Walter's been the one person I knew who has been getting up at 3:30, 3:15. He says between 3:15, 3:20 for the past 25 years. And then when you recommitted to this thing, you started getting up at like somewhere in the 3:30 mark. And we were joking tonight. I'm like, wait, we're going to start our interview at 6 p.m. You're going to turn into a pumpkin. I'm like, isn't it almost your bed? It's like 6:38.
Yeah.
I keep looking at the thing. I'm like, wait, isn't it almost your bedtime?
Yeah.
But tell me about your morning routine, how it came to be, what, as much as you feel comfortable sharing, what you do, and like why it's important to you.
So, got the rocks, and then that's when it started. And so I'm not, I don't remember exactly, like, I didn't like all of a sudden that next morning have this routine, but it developed, over the course of a pretty short period of time, really. But more or less it involved, getting to bed early. The key was getting to bed early the night before, which meant to me, I was I still am a Red Sox, Bruins, Celtics, Patriots fan, and it meant me shutting games off or not even beginning to watch them.
Okay, wait, let's discuss that. Okay, as a member of Red Sox Nation, as a New England kid myself, and here's the thing, we're now slouches. We've had some amazing teams over the past, the dynasty that we've kind of built. So it's not like you're just like, turning off a game. There have been times where you've been like, either I'm not going to even get involved and watch this game, or it's down to the wire. So this is a big thing because we're going for championships, and you still shut off the TV. Is this what we're talking? This level of commitment?
Yeah. No, and Steph can,
the other day.
Yeah. I didn't watch
Celtics?
Game 7 of the Celts,
Mm-hmm.
It's, but I knew that going into my 50s that it was going to take this level of commitment. And so that meant going to bed early, and that meant getting up. I think initially it was, around 4 o'clock in the morning, and then it developed into, more or less 3:15. I'd get up, have my coffee, make my coffee, and then have, drink water. And then, roll out my yoga mat.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Get some yoga in there.
Generally have, 3, maybe 4 different types of books that I don't read, covered. I just have like pages of each book that, one of them is a gratitude book. The other one is, like the 4 agreements.
Yep.
And then usually I'll finish that. The last book will be more of a, like a kind of a kick in the ass, like a David Goggins or a Jocko Willink, type book and I just read. So it starts with a spiritual, And so then I read a little bit, and I've got a list of 10 things that I'm grateful for, and I read that, and then I do some yoga poses, and then say a rosary, and then pray for friends and family.
Yeah.
And go through that. Generally, it all takes me half hour, 40 minutes sometimes, and then after I go through that, I do a morning post on Facebook, and, it used to be on the Facebook thing, it used to be a lot more like in depth, but I've kind of kept it, more simple. I stepped away from a little bit, about probably 4 or 5 months ago, just because I was, just having, I was just, obviously with the world and the way it is and opinions and stuff, getting a little bit overwhelmed with that stuff. But that being said, as I did miss doing it, but I also found that I was very surprised that people missed it, more than, and so I've, revisited that. And but I really feel like that, if you'd asked me, 20 years ago that I'd be said, would you be doing something like that, and would it really make that much of an impact on your day, if you missed it? I would say I would have laughed back then, but it's hands down, it's a game changer, and I've done it
100%.
every day. I have not missed a day since I was 50. So
how old are you now?
I'll be
I mean,
56.
I know, but tell the people. So you're
Yeah,
56 years old.
So, and I have not missed a day, and we're talking like races. I'm talking about going away, Pam and I go away for a weekend, or or in hotels, or I always find a place. Stuff always comes with me, and I always find a place to do it. And
well, so that's important. Let's talk about that, because, and Steph, I want to ask you too, in 1 second. You don't leave it up for chance, though. You're like, that stuff comes with me. So it is a priority now to you. And, the people who are listening, who, have been listening to me talk about this for so long, because I've had a daily, I'm not doing a comparison thing, but I'm just saying I've had a daily spiritual practice for over 30 years now. Every day before my feet even hit the floor in the morning, I'm like, I'm doing my thing, right? There's a reason for it. Because I got smarter, and I understood that when I don't do this, I'm different. I show up differently. This helps me to show up as my best self. So, I always say, like, my Ironman is less about like physical stuff. For me, it is definitely the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual, like really showing up with that. But you set yourself up for success because you plan it, you take your shit, whether you're racing, you're going to Ireland, you're going to Utah, you're going to Kona, Hawaii, wherever you're going, you're making sure, because you got smart enough to realize that this piece is, I don't want to speak for you, but in some ways, just as, or wicked important, is the training, the physical training. Because if you can't get your mind right, if you can't get your heart right,
Right.
it's great if the body can do these things.
Right.
But the interesting thing about triathlon is that it's a multi-dimensional sport. It requires strength of mind, strength of heart, strength of body, strength of spirit. And I want to talk about that in a second. But before we do, Steph, do you have any kind of ritual or routine or practice or daily thing that you do as well?
Yeah, it's developed within the last year, I say. So now that I started working, I've learned that I need to find time to train. But so I'm starting to now do workouts in the mornings. But before that, this is where he's explaining his morning routine, and I'm realizing that my morning routine's looking a lot similar now.
Yeah, I bet it is, because that's how it works. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't even like on purpose, because I have an apartment. I'm usually away from him. So
Yeah.
I've been waking up. I've had my alarm set for 3:15. I have not gotten physically out of bed.
I appreciate the but holding that vision, that's how new habits are created. You're like, I said it. So do you hit snooze? Is that what I'm hearing happens? Or
Yeah. 15-minute snooze, not proud of it, but my goal is to get it smaller. So
wait, you're still getting up at 3:30?
yeah.
Okay. I think you can relax. I think you can cut yourself a little slack. Okay. So, all right. So you're getting up at 3:30. Then what happens?
And then I go downstairs. I have to feed the cat because he's meowing at me. He's going crazy. But so usually I kind of flip it. He does that stretches in the evening too. I do most of mine in the evening. I don't do anything in the mornings.
Yeah.
I've tried that and I think I'd love to get to that point, but I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
But what I do is I get my coffee, my breakfast, and then I sit down at the table and the book that I usually have been reading for a while, because I don't read it, I just read it maybe a page, is Tim Grover.
Tim Grover.
Yeah, Tim Grover Winning. So it's just a kick in the butt every morning. And he also just gave me another book that I'm going to start switching to. It's a little bit lighter. It's
Brighter by the Day by what's the woman's name from Sports Center? Robin
Roberts.
Robin Roberts.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You know, she's on Good Morning America. Yeah.
No, I know who she is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that, like, when I don't read, I can feel the difference in my head mentally. And then after that, I have a 40-minute commute to work, so I listen to a podcast.
I was gonna say you must listen to. Okay, what's one of your favorite podcasts?
So lately, it's been I would listen to I love listening to Allie on the Run because she's got light spirited stuff. But I also have been listening to you. I have to say.
You have not.
Yes, I have, and I have to say I like your recent one with Get Your Hopes High. Like, get your hopes up.
Way up. Yeah.
That really, it stuck to me, and I had a good conversation with Michaela about it.
You did?
Hey, yeah, it was like I could really connect with it with just visualize how I visualize a lot. And as you were talking about, you went through a lot of different points in it, but it connected with me. So I do podcasts lately have been a big part of my life too. So
yeah, I mean, it's an incredible way to be able to listen. So first of all, thank you for listening to the show. That's so sweet. And you brought up Michaela. So I don't want to get distracted from there's like at least two more questions I definitely want to ask that I think first of all, I know I have listeners, but this really, when I have these episodes where my friends are on, I'm like, this is just shit I want to talk about and I want to know, and hopefully it also serves them. But so you brought up Michaela. So, and I also know your wife, Pam. Obviously I've known you guys for a wicked long time. When that thing goes off at 3:30, like what's Michaela doing? Is she like, because she doesn't have to get up that early. So does she just roll over and go back to sleep?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so she's just like used to living with an insane person, basically. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I know. Okay. She's like, I can tell, like she knows I'm waking up, and I feel bad because I also have to bike on the trainer in the room next to her. So.
Oh my God. All right. So we're going to get to how this is not a solo endeavor, that this is another important thing that I want to talk about. So Sean, Pam, so here's the other thing too. The one thing you keep saying, I go to bed early, but tell me the number. Cause I know I'm going to start laughing right now. What's your typical bedtime?
I really target 7:30.
Okay.
Sometimes, so it can go anywhere. Let's just say it goes anywhere from 7:15 to 8:15.
Okay. So, and you go to bed that early too?
No. I do, like, I shoot for winding down at 8:30. It's usually ends up being like 9:30, sometimes 10, which I'm like, no, but
yeah, because you need to get your hours in, but you're younger. So you still are bouncing back a little bit better than your father and I would be on like 4 hours of sleep. So here's the thing. There's something about being married to somebody who goes to bed at 7:30 at night and somebody who gets up at 3:30 in the morning. Right. So there has to be, I'm sure there's some negotiations or either like, let's just get to it. Acceptance. Like I always say to my sweetie and I joke, like one of us will do something and we look at each other and I'll go, look, you know who you married, right? And we start laughing. So like she knows at this point who she's married to.
Right.
And that she's also kind of married, I say this in an affectionate way, like an insane person, right? So like, because this is what makes you you.
Yes. Oh
And
yeah, it's beyond. Yeah, it's what is it? How would you say? It's like she's beyond the it's
she's just accepted.
no, she's accepted it, but she's totally completely numb to, like, it's not like, I could tell her that I'm getting up, okay, because I do this, I'm getting up at 1 o'clock in the morning to go out and bike 100 miles, before 8 o'clock in the morning. And okay, well, have fun.
Have fun.
Well, I'm going to Lafayette Sunrise, and then I'm going blah blah blah. All right,
but it's the 3:30 because here's what you guys don't know. In a lot of spiritual traditions, that's when they say to get up in the morning. That
right.
twilight hour is like a holy hour. I'm not saying that's why you guys do it. Sometimes it's just necessity. It's like I have to be at Toyota at 7:30 and I got to get my run in, my swim, like I got to get this stuff in. And some people like that time to like be with themselves, be with their thoughts, or get their shit done, or whatever it is. So is that more of a necessity that like I want to get my training and my time in with the divine or God or source or whatever, plus I want to get my mind right, I want to take care of my body, I got to get my training in because I have to be at work at this time? Is that the reason for the 3:30 or the 3:15?
So it's so yes, partially. How, and that initially it was, so I would say it started as a discipline. Okay, it started a discipline. So you want to get your shit together, Sean, you need to start going to bed early. You need to start ditching the, the habits that you have, and getting into better habits. And what better way to do that than, and everything that I had read and, and understanding other people that have, over time have done, similar. You got to ditch the old habits and pick up new habits. And what better way really would be than to start going to bed early, getting up early. So that initially it started as a discipline thing to, okay, you're in the Army, if you would, you need to buckle down on it. Sure. So that was how it started. And then of course I started realizing that, geez, if I get by 2 a.m. I can bike 80 miles before work, and my shop foreman and I ran or ran Mount Lafayette before work one morning. We got met at 1 o'clock in the morning. We went and did Lafayette, and then we got to work at 8 o'clock in the 7:30 in the morning, and worked all day, So I started finding these things that, wow, you could actually do a lot. You can still sleep. You go to bed at 6:30 and then get up and do a lot. So it got into that, and then
I'm following you.
I will tell you this. I mean, this leads into a few different things, but I'm now understanding that a big part of what I didn't understand probably for 3 or 4 years, I really have only kind of come to this recently, but I really am understanding that a big part of the 3:15, 3:30 thing is the silence and the quietness of being able to just ground yourself and be stable and start that, so that build that foundation quietly, all right, going into the day for the stuff that you're going to be faced with. Yes. And that was like, and that I've really come to realize like how important that is, and how,
my God, yes.
And the world is silent. It is silent. And then, as the morning grows and then the birds wake up and everything like that, everything comes to life. And that to me is each day is one of the biggest joys, is being able to see that come to life, instead of, again, everybody's different, but instead of being the opposite and missing that, and then coming into the day where it's already noisy and already going, and then trying to burn the other end, and to me, it's the way that the world wakes up. And I can understand in doing it as long as I have, I guess now, and the reasons that it's gone from this to this to this to this. And now I do understand that 3:30 is probably that optimal where, your body says, let's go. We need to wake up and we need to enter into the day, So the other thing I was going to say was, Steph's got a book with Tim Grover, and he's to me he's my kind of, he coached,
I know who he is. I know Tim.
Moby and Michael, and he's pretty blunt. I mean, he's very, and I love, we both love reading his stuff. And one thing that we were actually talking about this last week is Steph said to me, she said, Dad, he says, what does he say? He says, getting up, what is it? It says getting up at 3:30 or, 4 o'clock shouldn't be something that you do, because you're doing it and bragging about it, or you should.
Well, it's like the 5 a.m. club or whatever.
I get up at 5 a.m., and
Yeah.
that type of stuff. And I said, I don't know how we got talking about it, but, and I said, but to me, it is something that comes up often, when I talk with people about the routine and stuff like that. And to me, it really has nothing to do with saying that, oh yeah, I get up at 3:30 or 3:50 in the morning. To me, it really is like the benefit I want to, when I talk to people, the benefit that it's really given me, not to brag about what time I get up, but legitimately like how important it is to each one of my days and how much I can actually get done early in the morning, and before I go to work, and or even on the weekends. I mean, the weekends I'm up the same time. It's very, as I've gotten into my mid 50s, there are days, after an Ironman, after a long weekend or training or whatever, and if I need to listen to my body, and you're gonna hear this out of my mouth, K2, but I listen to my body, and I will sleep until 4:15 or God knows 5 o'clock.
Oh my God, not 5.
Yeah, I mean, and I know, I know as I've gotten older now, early 50s and everything, man, it just boom, But I am definitely noticing as I'm going into my second half of my 50s.
Yeah.
I feel like I can still get stronger. I really do. I don't feel like I've hit my peak, but it really is taking a lot more smart. So it's going to takes even more, it takes even more effort,
Well, what it also, the thing is that the more that you're doing this routine, the longer that you're doing it, and you're not doing it like you're doing it with presence. You're not just going through the motions, right? So a lot of people do is they start, especially when you're doing something like using a mantra or doing the rosary where it's repetition, which is right up your alley. But it can be really easy to just let the subconscious mind do it. It's like, if you drive your car, you ever like drive and all of a sudden you're at your destination and you don't even remember driving there, right? Like, is your brain checked, like the front of your brain checked out, but your subconscious is the one actually doing the driving because it knows how to do the things. It's the same thing when we're doing spiritual practices or learning anything, where it's like you have to be present for it. So the more that you're getting quiet, and the more, to me, it's all what you do in the morning is it's just a spiritual practice, just straight up. You can call it whatever you want. This is what I call it, right?
Yeah.
So you're being incredibly present, and you're noticing, this is how I feel. This is what I'm noticing, how I'm thinking. This is what I need. My body, this is what my body needs. This is what my spirit needs right now. The fact that you're doing that is such a beautiful thing. I mean, we are entering those, I'm 53. You're a little older than me. My sweetie just turned 57. And so, it does take the body a little bit longer to recover. It does require us to be a little smarter about how we're moving through the world. Because here's the other thing. We have less years ahead of us than we do behind us. So we have to be intentional about our time, our energy, what we're choosing to do, who we're choosing to do it with. And so I love that you're breaking this down and sharing it. And I think that that piece about getting quiet, that is like so huge in the part of all spiritual practice, is so that you can not only dial down the chatter of the monkey mind, but so they get a little quiet internally, so that you can also hear any guidance, whether you want to call it from God, source, intuition, your inner teacher, the inner voice, divine intelligence. Your higher self. I don't care what people call it, but that's a spiritual and emotional maturity that is happening as well. And it's a beautiful and it's a powerful thing. And I love that's part of that balance that I would have talked about a wicked long time ago. Because what I find with so many people like you and like a Goggins, who's like on my spiritual team, so you and Goggins are like the ass kickers on my spiritual team, is that I would say just because you can doesn't mean you should. Because you have the kind of will that can push you and push you and push you and push you. Right. So it's really powerful. So two things. I know I want to let you go so you can get to bed, but
I do want to, I want to add something on this.
Yes, please.
On this really quick. So I will say this. So, you know, I don't know, maybe a year ago, I was gifted with with this thing called the iPhone. I got an iPhone.
I remember when you told me you had a smartphone and you got rid of your flip phone. I was like, what is happening?
Everybody was just like floored at work. People came running out of their offices when they heard about it. They were just like, oh my God, you gotta be kidding me. So with that, I started to add watching videos.
Yeah.
To my morning routine. So I, was getting really into like Sadhguru,
yeah,
those type of spiritual or meditation stuff, or even Goggins, or depending on the mood of the day. And I wouldn't watch a lot of them, but I would watch maybe one video a morning with the other stuff that I was doing. So it was adding a little bit more time, but I was adding it. But I will honestly, at first it was kind of a jolt. I'm like, all right, this is cool. This is awesome. But I really, over time, I didn't realize it, but over the time, I kind of felt like I was getting away from my routine a little bit. Like I was feeling different. Like I thought that I would have been more, because you're talking about how before you were saying how you're on autopilot. You're on autopilot. So so I felt like, and I didn't realize this at the time, but when I have to read, or when I have to pray, or when I have to sit still and I just have to, okay, you're not on autopilot. You are you, and it's everything. You're reading it. And by watching the videos over time, it wasn't immediate, but over time I became on autopilot. And you would have
takes you outside of yourself.
Because exactly. So you're watching something that you think is really, and maybe every once in a while it would be nice to watch, but if you get into the habit of doing that, you're just constantly watching something and you're not getting that same feeling because you're watching somebody else say it. And I realized, a few months ago, and this is after many months of this. And in the morning, I was just like, I was still doing it all. And it was taking longer, but I was not, at the end of it, I was just like, wow, man, I feel like I should, because if you've done it long enough, you understand
yes
feeling of what you should feel like. And it's not a feeling that you say, oh, I need to feel like this. It's just something that you walk out the door and you're rock solid for whatever's going to come at you.
Well, we say, I just said on my podcast that came out today, we don't pray and meditate and do all these spiritual things. I'm like, you don't do them to get better at praying and getting better at meditation. You do them to get better at life. You do them to show up better as yourself, to be more in alignment so that you can meet whatever life brings to your door. Yeah. And what's powerful is what you're saying is, watching these external videos. It's almost like I don't mean it this way, but in a way it's like a cheap high, right? It's like, I'm going to watch this thing. It's like a sugar rush. I'm going to get motivated, like pump me up. Yeah. But it's like, it's coming from an external thing. And
Yeah.
what you were finding is that you were going online internally, right? We talk about this, like big mind, like you were tapping into, again, I don't want to speak for you, whatever you call it, God, love, whatever. You were going online, going inward, connecting to that thing. What I always do this thing, it's like alignment with your true self, with your highest self, with the beloved, with God, source, love, all of it. And so when you're getting pulled out of it, but what's beautiful is you had to do it long enough to understand what it felt like when you were in the zone, let's call it, or in that pocket or in that holy place, right? That place where you felt connected to self, source, and spirit. And then when you did it a little differently, but that's what it's all about. It's about having that experiment and that experience to go,
Yeah.
oh, I now have something to compare it to.
Yeah.
And what's powerful is that I mean, I could talk about this so much, but that sets you up for the rest of your day.
Right.
That
Dude.
sets you up for the rest of your day. And that for me is like, I always say, like, that's my Ironman. Like
Yeah.
me having a daily spiritual practice for as long as I had to
Yeah.
keep showing up every single day, whether you're sick, whether you're tired, whether you feel like it, whatever. Like I don't physically put myself through those kinds of things. Although I am not a born runner. Like even today I was out on a run and I think of you like every time, like especially when there's a point where I'm like, I don't feel like doing this, because there was a very small window of time, and it's been actually different times. Like when at one point I was like, oh, I want to see what it's like to get better at swimming. And like you were coaching me,
Yeah.
and I was getting faster and I was getting better. But one of the things I realized is that now, while I love swimming, like meaning it's super fun, but like getting changed and putting the thing on and the cap and smelling like chlorine and the rigmarole of the pool. And like, I was just like, what I realized, and I've never told you this before, what I realized for that is I was more driven by, oh, S2 is going to be proud of me. S2 is going to say, oh, you got fast at K2. Like I was driven more when it came to the pool by an external validation, like, you know, hearing you get excited for me, than I really was like, oh, I love swimming.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
But
Yeah.
what I did find is that I found it, as Steph was saying earlier, I found it very meditative, because I was
Yes.
just breathing and going back and forth, breathing and going back and forth. So it was interesting. But then I realized, although I can swim and I'm pretty good at it, like, you know, pretty good at it, not competitively and not anything that I loved it enough to keep doing it. And then the longest distance I've ever run, you know, and I'm married to somebody who was like a track star in high school and has been a runner his whole life. But when I first decided I'm going to start running, like I was doing like 2 miles and still sucking wind. And then you started coaching me. This is leading somewhere. PS listeners, stay with me. And you started coaching me, and informally, I would just say like, hey, what should I do? And like once a week, you'd say like, try this, do this, do this. And I'd always come back and be like, S2, I went this far. And then one day I ran like 3 miles. And then shortly after that, it was like 4. And you were like such a pain in the ass, because you wouldn't just say, oh, go to 4.5 today. You'd say, go to 5. And I'd be like, what do you mean add a mile? And then like, I was just like, what? And then this is another point of this though. When I first started running, was running like 13-minute miles, like slow. We're talking like slow. And then I started getting a little fast, and then I was like, oh, 12-minute mile. That was really good. So one day I'm running with my sweetie, and this is during my time with you. And he smokes me. Like he just smokes me when we used to run. But I'd say, hey, I forgot my watch. Can you keep pace for me? S2's having me do whatever today. And he's like, yeah. And he lied to me. And because he said, well, how fast do you want to go? And I said like this. And I said, but you run so fast, sweetie. I could never run like a sub-9 or whatever. I'm like, just go. If I'm too slow and I'm holding you back, go. He's like, no. And he sets his watch and we start running. And I'm just keeping pace with them. And I'm just thinking, man, I'm tired. Like this, I just must be fatigued today. Like I told him what the pace was, right? We get a mile in and I look at him and he just smiles and he's like, that was a sub-9. And I was like, what? because I didn't know, because I
Yeah.
didn't know. And
Right.
because I didn't set the limitation on myself, I
Yep.
could do more than I thought I could. Oh, it was only for a mile and then I slowed down. But
Yep.
like that blew my mind and it taught me something. But here's the kicker. Then you challenge me and you say, go 8 miles. I was like, fuck you. I was like, no, like I am not doing this. I can't run 8 miles. I really believe this. I'm like, I can't run 8 miles. I mean, I was just doing 3 miles a month and a half ago, whatever it was. Not only that, it was cold and it was raining. And I don't like running when it's cold and when it's raining. But I get out there and my sweetie, he was so concerned. He was like, he was doing like drive-bys. He's like, I'm going to drive by and see if she needs a ride home. But I was so determined. And we're getting somewhere in this comment. I was so determined. And I must have pulled up in my head. I'm like, every ass kicker that I could think of. I mean, literally, like I was pulling up some deep, dark stuff. And I was like, I refuse to quit. I was shuffling it. I was like, I don't care. As long as I'm moving, I'm not quitting. Like I am not quitting. My sweetie came out. I'm running back. Now I'm on the way back. And he drives by me. You can see his eyes. He's like, you're still going. Like he was so excited, but I was determined to do it. I've never run 8 miles again in my life since that day because I just wanted to see if I could do it.
Right.
And that's the difference with me. Like once I know I've done it or I could do it, I go, oh, that's good. Check. I don't need to keep doing it.
Right.
But you guys go out there and you keep doing it. So here's a question I want to ask you. We've jokingly talked about, so I want to hear about, well, first of all, before we go here, summarize, how many years have you been racing?
I mean, so
Roughly.
triathlons or
Not the mountain biking, although that's cool.
Okay, so triathlons, I would say, let's call it 20 years,
All
maybe
right.
a little more.
How many times have you done the Boston Marathon?
I've done Boston each year since 15, so I guess it's 7 maybe, because we didn't have the one. So 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So 7 years, because it wasn't.
Steph, you just did Boston, right? Was it your first or your second? It was your first?
First, yeah. Yep.
But at the local rockin' race, true or not true, did you not just come in first place women overall out of everybody, or was it your age group?
It was overall.
See,
yeah.
I know. I was like, I wanted you to just say it. I kind of do, but I was like, okay, so that's a huge milestone. That's so I have so many things I could say about that. So kick ass, amazing job. I was so proud of you. I got so excited when I saw that because you're just getting stronger and stronger and better. And it's incredible. All right. S2, how many half triathlons have you done? So we're talking 70. Yeah.
70.3. How many halves? I've done probably 70. 60.
All right, you got listeners. 70. How many full Ironman races have you done?
34.
Okay, how many times have you gone to the World Championships in Kona?
5.
Okay, you guys, this is what I'm talking about. This is the level of athlete and human being that I'm talking about. And Steph, how many halves have you done now? Roughly
5, I would say.
And how many full?
1 official, 1 not official.
All right,
so I've done 2 because I actually include hours that I actually we went up and we did the COVID year. We did the Ironman Lake Placid course. We did the race.
I remember. Together. I saw the pictures.
Yep. So we count that. Yeah.
So you're at the beginning. I mean, you got 30 years of catching up basically to do. But here's why I'm asking that. Like I said, I ran 8 miles and I was like, good, done. Glad I did it. Awesome. And I still run. I mean, I run 4 or 5 days a week in the warm months. I don't like to run when it's cold. But here's the thing. I do it. I move my body, right? But here's the thing. You continually choose to do it. I know there are some races that are harder than others. So I know one of the things that you do, S2, and you were talking about this, when you decided to step back from Facebook. You do these daily inspirational posts. I know that you feel called to do them. I know that you said you took a break and everybody's like, S2, where'd they go? Because it's a little shot. It's a little shot of adrenaline, a little shot of feel good for them, right? That's a little love. That's a little sip of love first thing in the morning for people, because you do them really early in the morning, right? So people really miss that. And so you've created this stuff where you're inspiring others, motivating others, helping others. Here's what I'm going to connect all the dots here. When you're out on the course, because we used to joke around about like, because I've been up to Placid too, to cheer you on in races and stuff like that as well. And on the training weekends, I would hear you guys always saying things like, oh, I saw Jesus at the turnaround, right? Because it's getting wicked hot out there. So when it gets hot out there, two things, and I want to hear from both of you. So number one, who inspires you? Since you inspire so many people in so many different ways. I just saw the podcast you were on with, I didn't watch the whole thing, but Bob, what's Bob's last name?
Bob Turner.
So Bob Turner, and you two have been competing for years. So I know you inspired him. I know how many athletes in the local area got into triathlon because of you. I know how many people you inspire on multiple levels. I want to know who inspires you. And number two, part two of the question, when you're out on the course and like you're quote unquote seeing Jesus, like when it's getting hard, I know part of this answer because I've asked you this before, but I haven't asked you this question in a wicked long time. Where do you go to? Because I know when you mentioned about your childhood, I know some people get motivated by love. I'm doing this for my mom who's dead. I'm doing this for, like, each mile gets dedicated to somebody. But some people also get motivated by, fuck that kid in 5th grade who called me fat and told, or that teacher who told me I couldn't do anything. So tell me a little bit about the psychology of it. Who inspires you, number one? And then what do you dig up and how do you, for the listeners, when just even, they're not out there doing Ironman, probably most of my audience, but when life gets tough, how do you dig in and find your grit or resiliency or whatever? What do you lean on?
Well, I mean, I would say, I would have to say that, people that, Pam just walked in, so she's going to have to come over.
Hi, Pam.
I would say that, from a, here we go.
Hi, sweetheart.
Good to see you, Karen.
Good to see you too. Hi, Kona. Oh, Kona's bringing us a flip-flop. Fantastic.
So I would have to say that
who inspires you? That's the first part.
Inspires me. My family. My family. I mean.
Like, who do you look up to? Who inspires you? Who do you look at or draw sustenance from?
Well, I mean, Pam and Steph. I mean,
Yes.
in terms of right here.
Sure.
From a, I've spoken of this often, that I pray a lot on the course, so, I do a lot of praying to the point of, depending on the duration of the event, prayer in my head for days on end after, because I've said it so often during the race. So there's the faith part of that.
Yeah.
There is there really isn't like an exact answer to all of that, but there really is a core of so it's family, it's God. And ultimately it goes back to, what we were talking about earlier, childhood, adversity.
Yes.
And how it's built me into what it continues to build me into. And I feel like as I've gotten older, I've realized, like, more important than what I'm doing for myself, it's what I'm doing for myself, but also to inspire others that it can be done. They can do it as well. And so going back to the childhood thing, I mean, I did not and I still, this still drives me. So this, I go into these places, these deep, dark places when I'm out on the course, in trouble. And usually they get me through. I will say that my best races are times that I'm just, none of that really is in my head. I'm just one with whatever it is, but when things are really tough, I think back to, and I don't intentionally go back to thinking about it, but for whatever reason, I go back to that kid that, threw the ball, 500 times, a night off of the barn. I was very fortunate growing up, with a family that I had. I mean, we did not have easy times.
Yeah.
And my mom was our rock. I had uncles and grandfather who were and eventually my dad, revisited, a little bit later, as a child. But that were a big core of, my development. But I think that a lot of the adversity that I went through as a child and how I reacted, how I say this often to people, especially now as I've gotten older, my life could have gone this way or could have gone that way, and I see too many people going that way. I see it too much now, and I don't know where it takes me down the line, but eventually in the subtle way that I'm doing it now, I want people to understand you can go this way, but you got to start right here.
At any point, you can change.
At any point, at any point, it's up to
Yes.
you. It's up to me, and it's up to
Yes.
me. So, and that goes, so I go back to when I was a child and whatever reason, it's that thing. And once you start understanding that it comes from here, I can go this
From
way.
within you.
instead of going this
You're
way.
pointing to your chest again. So it comes from within
Yes.
you is what you're saying.
It comes from within,
Yeah.
so instead of going this way, away from my dreams and my obstacles and avoidances and all that, I can choose to look them square in the eyes,
Yes.
and deal with them and face them and move through them, and that's where, so my inspirations are it can be multiple things. And that's one of the gifts of an Ironman is you can have many different inspirations over the course of the, a 15-hour day, but I can, and I've had, the past month, I've had a couple of pretty, adverse races, if you would,
Yes.
and that I've been faced with issues that, were out of my control. And quite frankly, I could have very easily given into them and said, called it a day in both the Boston Marathon as well as an Ironman I just recently did. And in both of those races, it took every single ounce that I had in both days to make it across the finish line. And to be honest, when I think back to, it'd be easier to at my age and all of the, I guess, the accomplishments, if you would, to say, you know what, screw it, I don't need to be doing this to myself.
Yeah.
I knew in both situations that no, you're gonna friggin' suck it up, get it fucking done. You're gonna get it done. And I'll tell you, Boston was a little bit easier because you had,
the crowds.
I've said this about Boston, and this is why it's such a special event to me, is that each year I've done it, it literally feels like 10 minutes it takes 10 minutes to do the race, and as even 2018 when we had the nor'easter, and it felt like 10 minutes because of the crowd. And this year it took me almost 6 hours to do, and I can look back on it and still say it still felt like 10 minutes, But Utah was
A shit show.
a shit show, not because of a hamstring or anything like that. It was the heat. There was a lot of factors, but I had 2 miles left, and I sat, and this is late in the night, and I'm generally not out there late at night. And I sat at an aid station with 2 miles left on a curb, with my hands, my chin in my hands, wondering how the fuck I'm going to get to that finish line, and saying, nope, you're all done. And the person on my right shoulder says, nope, you're all done. And the person on my left shoulder said, you didn't fucking come here to quit, and I thought I was going to be pulling a Julie Moss, just to get there. And it's all downhill. All I had to do is keep walking. And it was all I could do to get back up, walk one more mile to the next aid station, and figure out how I'm going to get to that finish line. And and it really was not for lack of, it wasn't for a medal or for winning the race. It was going back to my childhood, back to what I came up, back what I said to myself back when I was 6 years old. You're fucking doing this shit, and that's what life is, man. And we are. I believe that as I've gotten older now, and I'm starting to understand myself more, and I see what's going on in the world and everything, the decisions and etc. There's, and I don't know where it takes me, but there is this calling to say, hey, you know what, you can do it. You got to decide. This isn't something that, that is just going to be handed to you. You got to figure it out. You got to do it. But once you do it, both of those races, they, time wise, they sucked, but both of those races, I can honestly say that, they were, they built me, and they built me, and you can ask Pam, it built character, and Pam will tell you that there's, you built enough character. You don't have any more character to build.
Well,
No more character, Sean, no more character. But you know what? It's you got to build it. You got to build it every day, because yesterday's gone, today's today, and I really, I believe that we all have that in us. But there's going to be, there are those days that, just going to work, that you're sitting on that side of the curb, with your hands, your chin in your hand, saying, how the fuck am I going to get through this? That's what it is, that's,
I know.
That's why I do this stuff.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. And Steph, before I come back and ask your dad another question, I mean, same thing for you. So you obviously haven't done yet, all these races, but, have you found, like, what do you lean on when you're out on the course and maybe you're getting tired, or you're feeling like, what the fuck, like, why did I do this, or whatever starts to go through your head? Who inspires you, and what do you lean on?
I don't want to sound repetitive in my first answer, but my first answer would be my family. So mom and dad and Michaela are the ones that that first stick in my head. But then I think about who I want to be, and where it's what the sacrifices I need to make to get there. And I go into a deep thought of, like, what was I thinking? I was thinking of something. There was one thing that I was like, the quote. So one of the quotes from Matthew McConaughey, and I don't want to say, I don't know if I can't do direct quotes because I don't know exactly, but
you can paraphrase, get in the ballpark.
Paraphrase. It was basically like, I'm always looking to be, I'm always trying to work to be the person, the person I am tomorrow. It's not like that.
I know what you mean. He says, because they asked him once, who inspires you? And he said, me 5 years from now.
Yes.
Talks about, right? Like being that next version of himself.
Yeah. So it's basically, when I'm in the freaking pain cave going, I feel like, like, it's those two roads, that which one are you going to take? And I think suffering isn't always the best answer, especially if it leads to injury and stuff like that. But I think to be able to get to certain goals, you need to dig deep and
yeah. I totally agree. I mean, I think about, and like I said, you know, Sean, you know, Oak Hill Road, like, you know, kind of where I live. So
Yeah.
that is like legit. I mean, people park near my house just to ride their bikes and run that hill because it's a training hill, especially for like Timberman and all, you know, the different races or whatever. So there are times when I'm running that hill, and I use the word running, let's call it jogging, but I'm running, I'm in motion, but it's slow. But I'll just put my head down and I just latch on to, sometimes it's a mantra, sometimes it's a prayer. Sometimes I'm like, Jesus. I sometimes used to joke, like when I would go to the gym and I'd be like squatting or doing heavy stuff, I would always jokingly call it like lifting weights with Jesus, and I would start laughing. But like I talk to God and I talk to my spiritual team just like I would my best friend. I swear I'm not pie. Like I'll be like, oh my fuck, I'm like, I need fucking help right now. Like, you know, I just ask for help, and I'll pull up Goggins. Like, it's like, I'll just pull up Goggins in my head, and I will be like, I'll just like play a loop in my head, or I'll pull up, you know, I'll think of your dad, I'll think of S2, and I'll be like, what would S2 tell me right now? And then I think about how many times I've been on the sidelines watching you like come down a stretch and just seeing the look on your face, sometimes jubilant, sometimes suffering. And I just think S2 wouldn't give up right now. And the one thing I often say about myself is I might have to walk, I might have to take a break, but I don't quit. Like I'm pretty stubborn. Like I'll keep going short
Yeah.
of like, you know, like I'm bleeding and dying, whatever. I'm like, I'm finishing. Like I like to really be self-integral and keep my word to myself, because something I learned about myself over the years too is that I was wicked good at keeping my word to everybody else. I wouldn't let other people down. But being able to become a person who won't let herself down, who keeps a word to herself, that has been like a really huge thing for me. So, I mean, I get a little emotional thinking about it, S2, but there have been so many times when I'm trying to, because mentally, emotionally, spiritually pushing myself just in day-to-day life, like that's my Ironman. That's where I thrive. That's where I'm good. But like physically, that's
Yeah.
like a different thing. Like being physically uncomfortable,
Yeah.
like that's something that I've had to learn how to get stronger at. You know what I mean? And so I call upon you. I put you in the little tape in my head, and I think about you. And, you know, every once in a while, I just think like, I'm so blessed and so happy that I have people in my life who inspire me and who like have a level of commitment that they're a really good example. I mean, we're pretty lucky, don't you think?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
the same with, yeah, no, it's,
100%.
yeah, yeah, no, we are, and I think that, once you realize that, and once you're able to tap into that, that you realize the possibilities, and, I mean, we've known each other for so long, and, we tapped into each other, and
Mhm.
I know I've said it a million times, and, you've inspired me, to, through some challenging times, through, great times, through everything, you've inspired me. And, you don't just inspire me, you inspire the world, and that's what that's to me is what it's really what it's all about,
Mhm.
and, ultimately when I look at, I guess, the big picture of why I do what I do is not necessarily the sport itself or going for the win. And, that is the goal. But I think as I've gotten older, the biggest thing out of it is that, it's not, getting up in the morning doing what I do, or racing, or at the age that I'm at, and, still believing that I can do what I can do, isn't because of the sport and necessarily the love of the sport, but it's, the metaphor for what every day is, and the life's challenges and taking that on. So, it's really not, I enjoy the sport and I enjoy what I do every day, but to me, it's more of the example that I set, and then the continued effort of doing what I do that really motivates me to continue to do what I do. You know, it sounds kind of, it sounds kind of deep, but it really isn't. It's getting up every day and going to the why, you know, and running into people, and it's catchy. People like yourself that say, you're in my head, you know, you're in my head, you know, like if I can do that to one person a day, then I've done my job, you know. And if one person can say that to me, then that's what I want. And I, you know, whether it's working at you know, working through the pandemic at work, you know, with the masks and all the high pressures that we were going through, but still holding the poise and doing what what you need to do. You know, all that it took to get through all of that, and the examples that you're setting by just doing that. You know, I feel like we need the mentors, the people out there to be able to follow. And I have those people like you, like other people that I know that, like, man, I know that Karen does this, or I know that, you know, Bob's doing this, or, you know, that type of stuff, you know. And now I got her, you know,
Yep.
she's setting her alarm clock earlier than I am now. Like, she's doing more than I'm doing. It's like, geez, I'm telling my friend Sean at work, I'm like, Jesus, I'm like, forget about my routine. She's got it now.
Well, let's finish on, so thank you for your kind words. And likewise, I mean, you've been inspiring me since the first day that I ever met you. And honestly, I could talk to you for like another hour. I have so many questions, but I think let's kind of wrap it up on this duo episode. You're my first duo guest, so this is kind of fun too. But so as how competitive, so it's kind of like a twofold question, like how competitive are you with each other? Meaning, like, I know as a dad, there's no way you're not proud of her. And you're like, we've been joking about this for years. Like before it was like, oh, she's going to catch up to me one day. And then you're like, oh, she's getting closer. And like, right. So as you're getting older, I mean, she's getting older too, but she's also coming into her prime and knowing herself, and she's getting stronger and like all this stuff. So there's going to come a point where she might get faster than you and truly pass you. Is there any part of you, and this is just like, I just want people to be so transparent and honest. Of course, you're proud of her. Is there any part of you that thinks, man, she finally beat me? And for Steph, is there any part of you that you think would ever hold back because you don't want to best your dad or beat your dad? I know you're running your own races, but do you see what I'm saying? Like, I want to just talk about this because I've known people, not in the, you know, triathlon, but in the game of life, where they didn't want to make more money than their parents. They didn't want to be come across as better than, because then the people they grew up with would be like, what, you think you're too fucking good for us? Like, whatever. So we have ways of limiting ourselves or whatever. So this dynamic of father and daughter, I mean, it's a really special bond that you have, that you get to do these things. And anybody who's listening to this is going to be like, oh my God, two peas in a pod. They're so much alike. Like, even just looking at the two of you, your body language, the way you talk, your inflection, the tone of your voice, you guys are so similar. So as this, for lack of a better term, kind of this passing of the torch in a way, how do we emotionally and energetically and all that, how do we feel about this?
So I'll go first. You want to go first?
There you go.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm just like unemotional.
Yeah.
No, it's so competitive, yes, because I want to be competitive, because I want to bring the best out of her.
You want to make her earn it. You want to make her earn it. Yeah.
I want to make her, I do, you know, like, so it forces me to work harder because I know that she's getting stronger. So, you know, the rocket race, you know, I've already told her, like, if I was able to run it that night, do I believe I would have beat her? Yeah, I think I could, but I physically am not sure I could run that now. I really, you know, to be honest with you, you know,
You mean that pace? You mean that pace that she did?
Yeah, what she ran. Yeah.
What was your pace, Steph?
It was like 550.
Yeah.
Maybe
549, something like that. And so you know, I don't want to say that I've come to terms with, you know, that I'm slowing down, but because I feel like I still have, you know, my best races in me. I mean, if I did believe that, then then I wouldn't put the effort that I have into it, so I really do believe that with smarts and patience, blah, blah, blah. So to answer your question, yeah, I mean, I want to continue to be stronger than her because I want her to get stronger.
Yeah.
When that day does happen, and it really has already happened, but it hasn't actually physically happened, where
Yes.
we've both been healthy, but it happened at the Rockin' Race, and will it happen in a distance one? We'll have to see how that goes, because that's a different,
Different
I
ball
think
field. Yeah.
that takes evolution, that takes a maturity and being able to go into those places for an extended period of time.
Sure.
But when it does happen, I mean, I'm going to be thrilled, I will, if it does happen, then believe me, I will come back and say, I'm working harder, it's not done. We're not done. I am not, it's not like, oh my God, this is, we're not letting this happen in a unhealthy way.
No, it's a healthy, it's a
very-
healthy, playful, but
Very, yes, but I wanted to work for it, and I'll step back a little bit where, many years ago we were playing, she's in her hockey years, high school, she was playing high school, and we had there was a father-daughter thing, and dads were out playing, and the dads were playing the girls, and I went into the corner with her, and I realized she could kill me, in the corner. We went to the puck, and we bumped, and she was powerful, very powerful, and I'm like, wow, it's my daughter, and it's the same thing now, as that. I've seen it evolve, and I've seen it evolve quick now, and I'm going down swinging, but it's definitely going to happen,
But a lot of
when it does, I will be absolutely, I'll be thrilled.
Yeah.
And if she continues to do what what she's doing now, and depending on the direction, we talk about this often, I'm like, you don't feel like you have to do this,
Yeah.
She loves doing it now, and that's great. If it eventually doesn't work out that she doesn't, then whatever she does, she'll put passion into. But when it happens, she's gone. It'll be, I'll be back there. I'll still be following, as close as I can. But when she decides, I know that, yeah, she's, so I'm the one that's going to be the, she'll be at the finish line waiting for me, but it's going to be a while.
Dad's not going down without a fight. Steph, what do you say?
So the first thing is when I saw him, the first time I ever passed him was Boston. So, I think in my head, I had that moment where I'm like, oh shit, he's right there. Oh, is he okay? Like, first, is everything okay? And then as we were running, we were talking, but in my head, I'm like, wow, so I'm feeling strong.
Yeah.
And he's not doing so hot. Like, this would be cool. We could do a race together. Oh, that would be cool. But and I had already thought it before he said it, but he said, you need to go. And I was like, and yeah, I'm holding them back right now, but it just,
You need to go.
you need to go. And so I was like, I know, but, and we train together, and we have our moments where we push each other. And he's done so much for me that I feel like it's okay for me to push myself faster than him. But there's definitely a part of me that's like, it hurts a little bit but I know he's trying to, he's not gonna give up.
I'm not giving up, but
And he wouldn't want you to take it easy on him.
I don't
No.
want,
No.
I don't want you to, and I want to see. I mean, if depending on what she wants, where she wants to go with it, then she needs to, and go for it, and and like I said, as far as I'm concerned, that's already been, it's been done in Boston, obviously, but Rock and Race, even not being a part of it, again, I realized that's it. That the torch has been passed if she decides to, and now it's like, how strong can I get her, and how strong can I keep myself in chasing her,
Keeping up with her.
keeping up with her, and again, that's, we both say that in a humble way, and she'll tell you that, okay, Rock and Race was a great experience, but just like Grover says, that's, that was back then. Now you got to keep working, we both know that, and I got to keep working to stay up with her. So that's the joy of it, and we'll tell you, I mean, we'll go out on these long training rides or runs and stuff, and they're our greatest gift. I mean, because we have these, we could do these podcasts of just us talking, and the conversations that we have from a father-daughter, we've had, thousands and thousands of hours of just talking about life, our life's conversations are, in that,
We talked about, I joked about how we could make our own podcast where we're just running and talking about our life stories.
You could. What do you think I do every week, right? I just stick a mic in front of my face and I go. I tell stories and I weave in spiritual principles, and it's like, you get a mic, you get a computer, you could do it. But the thing is that it's so beautiful that you guys have this time together, that you're creating so many memories together, and that so much of your even your competition is based on a foundation of love. And that's a really powerful thing, and it's a beautiful thing. And just thank you for sharing it with our audience, and with me, and for being a part of my life for so long. You were some of the, ST, you're one of the first people I knew when I moved to New Hampshire. And you've kind of, it's one of those things where, I always know that, like, you're kind of there. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, S2, K2, like we have the S2, K2 connection. And so just thank you for being my friend over the years. Thank you for believing in me, and for inspiring me, and for just being one of those people in my life that helps me to, through your example, in a lot of ways, helps me to be a better person. So I appreciate that.
And right back at you, K2. It was, it's the same here. I mean, I can honestly say that I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for you in my life. So, it's, it's, and that goes to, what I said before. You've done that, for me, for my family, but also, so many others in the world. So,
thank you, sweetheart. All right, well, before I start bawling, this has been such a pleasure. I love you two so much. I always have a way that I close out my show, where I just basically say to people, wherever you go, may you leave yourself, the people, the place, the animals, and the environment better than how you found it. Wherever you go, may you be a blessing. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Karen Kenney Show. I super duper appreciate your time, friendship, and support. And look, if something that I shared from my heart today somehow landed in yours, I'd love to hear about it. So please tag me on Facebook or Instagram or IG stories or wherever the cool kids are hanging out these days, and let me know what your favorite part was or what you found most helpful. You can find me over at Karen Kenney Live. That's Karen, KenneYlive. And if you're digging what I'm saying and you want to hear more, I'd be wicked grateful if you could go to iTunes and subscribe and leave a review. because you guys, that's how you'll help me to keep spreading the love. And if you can think of someone that could benefit from hearing this episode, please share it with them. I'd also love to stay connected with you. So if the feeling is mutual, please go to KarenKenney.com/freebie and download my free guide to building your spiritual team. Until next time, my brothers and sisters, keep living in the fearless flow. Know that I see you, I appreciate you, and I love you. And wherever you go, may you be a blessing.